If you add a little bit of zinc or another cation in the spray tank, you destroy its ability to turn off those engines that give the plant or the weed susceptibility to the pathogens. One of the treatments that we had a graduate student that didn't believe that, so I said, set up some plots and try it. You can see what happens over here. Glyphosate's a very powerful weed killer. Put a little zinc in the tank, in the spray mix. You lose that herbicidal activity because it can't chelate those critical elements, critical minerals like manganese and zinc and others that are required in the shikimate pathway. Even in the genetically engineered plants, you'll see that flashing, that yellowing take place, showing that it's chelating, it's immobilizing those nutrients. We get down to the agronomy farm, a very fertile soil, and that flashing may only last for a day or so. Get up in northwestern Indiana, low manganese soils, and it takes 8 to 10 days before the plant can recover those nutrients and start photosynthesis again. Again, it's a potent antibiotic. The way that it's detoxified in the soil is by chelating with calcium and magnesium, the other cations in the soil. You used to hear people say, well, spray it out there and poof, and it's gone. It's not gone, it's chelated. It may take some time for that chelation to take place, so that in our labels, in North America, it says it's safe to apply glyphosate any time before emergence of your non-GMO crop. In Israel, it says, the label says, it's not safe to apply glyphosate for up to 3 weeks because it takes time for it to be detoxified in the soil. It doesn't take very much of it to cause an effect on nutrient uptake. Again, it's that chelation effect. You can see that at 1/40th of the herbicidal rate, that's 12 grams per acre, less than a half an ounce per acre. You inhibit root uptake of iron 50%, of manganese by 80%. You compromise the efficiency of the plant for those nutrients. And then when you look at translocation from the root to the shoot, it's not just the roots that need those nutrients, but you reduce the translocation of iron, manganese, and zinc and other essential nutrients by 80 to 90%. We consider 12.5 to 16% of glyphosate as a normal drift. So you can see that these rates that Eckers was researching are well below your drift rates to have a very powerful impact on the nutrient sufficiency for the crop that we're trying to grow. Again, the herbicidal mode of action of glyphosate is increased susceptibility to disease. You can't kill a plant with glyphosate in sterile soil. You can stunt it, as you see here, a couple of weeks, all those lateral buds will break and you'll end up with a pretty good bush there as those nutrients are restored. Put it in field soil where you have all of our common soil-borne pathogens like Fusarium and Rhizoctonia and Pythium, Glomonomyces, Phytophthora, all of those others. It's a matter of just a few hours after the glyphosate application before those fungi have already colonized your root tissues and the plant is starting to die. We see the same thing with the foliar pathogens, as Dr. Yohal and Ray demonstrated with bean anthracnose. You can see that where they put a dilute solution of glyphosate where those black dots are, and then put a spore of the anthracnose fungus above or below it, that there's no plant response. The plant response defense mechanisms have all been shut down. Has a bad case of AIDS. The fungus continues to digest that tissue until it's completely girdled the plant. If you look at the plant on the left, that's a very severe reaction to this fungus with a normal, without the glyphosate, with a normal defense reaction taking place. You see that the plant will finally produce the phytoalexins, the antifungal compounds, so that you end up with a very well-defined lesion. Not that it's not severe, because that's a very severe infection, but certainly much less damaging than where you've compromised that entire defense mechanism with the glyphosate. This is the mode of action. It's not specific to weeds, so that what we're seeing is an increase in severity of many diseases that we used to have fairly well controlled. We could manage them. We don't have good chemicals and good genetic resistance to many of the soil-borne pathogens. We could manage them with crop sequence, crop rotation, with nutrition. I've served on our Threat Pathogens Committee for over 40 years. We refer to these diseases as re-emerging diseases. They're no longer controlled. We see take-all even driving farmers out of cereal production. It's no longer economical to grow wheat and barley in many areas because the soil-borne fungus that causes take-all is so severe, and our management techniques aren't working because the residual glyphosate stimulates virulence of those fungi. We also see new diseases, not just in the crop production, but also new human diseases and animal diseases, and I'll get to those related to the residual activity of glyphosate. If you look up in the upper left-hand corner, that's corn-osprey root rot on soybeans, Roundup Ready soybeans. 30 years ago, Dr. Scott Abney described this fungus in Iowa. He said that it never does any economic damage. It's just a little root nibbler. Well, if you put it in inoculated soil in the greenhouse, you can see in the middle one, it can do some economic damage. But then if you put a little bit of glyphosate on the foliage of those Roundup Ready soybeans, I've seen losses up to 40% because the glyphosate triggers a virulence mechanism to make this a very serious pathogen in many of our soils. It's the number 2 pathogen of soybeans in Brazil and their high Roundup Ready soybean producing area. You see other diseases. You see the gosseless wilt on corn. For 40 years, this was a disease that was limited to eastern Nebraska and western Iowa. We usually saw it only severe when the irrigation water was coming out of a stagnant farm pond that was heavily infected with the bacterium that causes gossel's wilt, the clavibacter. That's not the case anymore. It's throughout North America, on into Europe. Anywhere the seed has been spread, we now see that it's seed-borne. We see that an application of glyphosate to a Roundup Ready crop destroys the genetic resistance that those hybrids had previously to this particular disease. Not only that, we see that the resistance has been compromised in the breeding program because you can't get good expression of the genetic engineering traits if you have good resistance, genetic resistance to Goss's well. So there was a compromising of the resistance in order to get the expression of the proprietary product. More susceptible. But again, then, when you add the glyphosate or even some of the potent surfactants, you nullify the genetic resistance to this disease. I haven't been in Saskatchewan in the summertime, see your corn, but I can tell you that in Quebec, in those areas, you can drive down the highway and you can pick out all the fields that are GMO because of Goss's well.